Today we bring on Sawyer Gipson-Long to talk ball. All today on Locked On Tigers.
You are Locked On Tigers, your daily Detroit Tigers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of Locked On Tigers. I'm, of course, your host, Scott Bentley. Today is Wednesday, March 8th, 2023. Thank you for making us your first listen every single day. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, the official sportsbook of Locked On. Make every moment more. Visit FanDuel.com/Locked On today to get started. And now we can finally talk to him. Welcome aboard, Sawyer Gipson-Long, to the program. How you doing, man?
What's going on, Scott? I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm doing all right, man. I think just first and foremost, let's just start with like how spring's treating you, how camp's treating you. Obviously, got a little bit of that situation with who's on the minor league and major league camp is so fluid. So you kind of been up and down a little bit. Just how's it been so far?
Yeah, so this is my first time in Lakeland. A little bit different than Fort Myers. I was with the Twins before this, and down there it's pretty tropical. So during the spring and summer, it's very hot, and being a little bit farther north in Florida the weather's a lot nicer, I will say. But yeah, I've been going back and forth between camps, and I've been getting some action in the big league games. So that's been pretty awesome for me too. This is my first year doing that.
For sure. No, I can imagine. I guess we'll just start with the beginning of your Detroit Tigers organization career, right? Obviously at the deadline, you and Michael Fulmer, your names will forever be tied, and now you end up as part of the organization. Just talk to me about the trade itself, coming over, and kind of the beginning of your Tigers career so far.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it was unexpected, but I guess I was still a little surprised when I got traded. Nobody exactly knows what's going on, so it's all in the front office. They don't tell you anything. So when I got the call, I was it was a hectic day for sure. But I got the call and basically was on the road the next day, and I go to Portland, Maine. That's where the Seawolves were playing. So I reported to the AA team, and I got there. I think the deadline was Tuesday. I traveled Wednesday. My first workout with the team was on Thursday. I didn't make it in time to get to the game on Wednesday, but I was there Thursday, and then I was starting for them on Friday. So it was a pretty quick turnaround, like trying to figure out where I was at and get to know some of the guys before I started. So I would say I was a little nervous out there, switching teams like that, but it was a wild couple of days for me.
Well, life comes at you fast, man. That's
Yeah.
that's certainly a roller coaster. Well, I think I want to talk a little bit about just that Seawolves team in general, and we kind of talked a little bit off air before we started recording about how I asked the same thing to Brennan White. Just like that team obviously had a lot of success, and
Mhm.
I don't know how up to date you are on your Seawolves history, but like that team hadn't made the playoffs in quite a long time, and
Yeah.
to just kind of be like shot out of a cannon and just put onto that roster in the middle of a season, and
Mhm.
obviously, the minors, there's a lot of demotions and promotions and stuff happening all the time, but just kind of to be entered straight into that and then kind of finish
Mhm.
off the season on a high note there. What was it like just kind of being placed into that roster mid-season, given where the season ended up taking you guys?
Yeah, when I got there, I didn't know a whole lot about that league. I had never played in that league before, but I had gotten there and I had done my research a little bit before I got there, and I realized, this team's pretty good. Like they win a lot of games, and so I was assuming I was going to go into a clubhouse where the guys were, going to be super serious and like like every game mattered. But actually, when I got there, everybody was very comfortable and they welcomed me, and they weren't, I didn't feel, left out or anything. I think everybody was super friendly when I got there, and the vibe in the clubhouse was awesome. And I think that's why they won a lot of games. It wasn't that, everybody was. I believe everybody was, like vibed well together, and we all meshed, and I fit pretty well into that clubhouse when I got there.
For sure, for sure. Well, again, just with the amount of, I guess the word is turnover, kind of with that pitching staff, even specifically, a lot of guys getting either from below that level, getting moved up, and then at that level, and then like moved up. I would imagine that they were they were pleased to see you walk through the door as well. And
Mhm.
so when talking about the type of pitcher you are, just like on the field specifically, you know, you have very, very solid strikeout numbers and very, very low walk numbers, which is
Mhm.
obviously something that this front office, especially, but all front offices like those two things. So, just
Sure.
talk to me about the type of pitcher you are specifically and what kind of leads to that.
Yeah, well, I'm a strike thrower, and I might not have the best stuff by any metrics, but I'm gonna fill up the zone with what I got that day. And as a pitcher, at any level, you always have the upper hand. The batter is at a disadvantage, no matter how good they are. Like, I'll take my chances throwing what I have that day in the zone down the middle than giving them any free passes. And the best two pitches in baseball are strike one and strike two. It doesn't matter how you get them,
Dang right.
you know. But once you do get them, you're in a really good spot. Getting to two strikes quick, and that's been my mo for my career. Getting ahead, staying ahead, and I think with the Tigers, I fit in really well. The Twins did a good job of that when I was with them. They preached the same thing. Uh, Strikes matter. Keep your walks down. Don't throw as many balls. You have a better chance in the zone. And when I got over here to the Tigers, the culture was very similar. It was like, we want you to throw strikes, all your pitches in the zone. Be as nasty as you can, but at the end of the day, strikes matter the most.
For sure. Well, I kind of want to piggyback off that. And another question that I ask a lot of the dudes in the organization, especially on the pitching side of things, is just talk about the coaching and the development staff in place, because I know that you are relatively new to the organization, but just there has been so much turnover as far as like the coaching staffs at the minor leagues levels and the development staff at the minor league level in the last 2 years, really, I guess, since
Mm-hmm.
Hinch kind of got on board, and then now
Yeah.
obviously again, kind of with the change at the top there with Scott Harris. So
Mm-hmm.
I did want to ask you about that, and what conversations you're having with them, and what you guys are looking for specifically when you talk about adjustments and improvements and stuff. Just whether it's a name or a strategy or whatever, just like what is helping you grow so far within the Tigers organization.
Yeah, so I came into the organization with one fastball. I just threw a four seam, and it was pretty good. It played well enough. I would say my off speed offerings are a little better than my fastball, but when I got here, the Tigers did a really good job of noticing, how I moved and like my hand at release and what kind of movements I tended towards. So they talked to me about it, and they were like, we think you can throw a sinker." And if you're familiar with the concept of seam shifted wake, um, when you throw, hold on, I'll get a baseball and show you.
Oh, I love
So
it.
so basically, like, I guess a traditional two seam would like, you want the axis to be spinning like sideways like this.
Sure.
So when it spins sideways, what happens is like it kills the vertical, so it basically makes the ball drop. To get to that, you if you want to get there, either you have to really pronate your wrist over, or another way is there's a kind of a uh, um, I guess how the air works around the baseball. It's kind of a
Sure.
physics equation, but like if you have a tendency to be like on the side of the ball at release. So when I release the ball, my hand's a little bit supinated, meaning my pinky's a little bit forward versus like my index finger being forward in pronation. I'm kind of like on this side of the ball.
Sure.
So it like comes out of my hand like this. So what the Tigers wanted me to try and do was like get this concept of seam shifted wake where if I can throw the baseball and have it spin out of my hand almost like I'm cutting it, there's this little like there's this little part of the ball right here, this little smooth part that if it comes out of my hand a certain way, like this little smooth part is kind of facing the hitter. What happens is the air, I don't know exactly how it happens, but the air catches this side of the ball and basically tilts the axis down for you instead of having to like pronate the pitch. The air currents around the ball make the axis drop. So that was kind of the biggest thing when I got here was like, we want you to try and throw a sinker. And I was like, okay. I'd been used to I'd thrown a sinker in college before, but I didn't really have any good numbers on it. I didn't have any analytics in college or Rapsodo or TrackMan or anything like that. So I didn't know really how good it was. And it had been successful for me in college. And then finally when I got here, I started messing around with it and I noticed it had a lot more movement than I thought it would. And just throwing that a lot more and adding that to my arsenal with my four seam that has decent enough vertical movement, like both of those play off each other really well. And I've seen success so far facing batters and in lives and stuff. And I'm really happy where it's at.
Well, that's awesome. That's to pick that up really at any level, I guess, but
Mhm.
like in the middle of a pro career is super cool. And I wanted to going into it, I wanted to ask you about uh, when you first came over, one of the things that a lot of analysts and like media people like myself kind of talked about was how much spin you had on really like all of your pitches, but like your
Mhm.
breaking stuff as well has a lot of spin. And I was gonna ask how that kind of played into development and how that plays into your game and I don't know how intentional I guess that is for you. And
Mhm.
you kind of answered some of the questions there, but I'll
Yeah.
ask again just in regards to spin with really anything, no matter what pitch it is, how how much has that been something you pay attention to, and how aware are you of that on like a game to game, week to week type of basis?
Mhm. Yeah. Spin for me hasn't really been a big part of my development, I would say. I think I've always had that in my arsenal, so I haven't really chased like higher spin rates. Um, Personally, to me, like trying to spin the ball more doesn't really do a whole lot in terms of movement. Um, and like with my slider being a high spin rate pitch as it is, I'm not necessarily trying to get an extra 100 or 200
Right.
RPM
Yeah.
out of that. I have enough already
Fair.
where maybe if I tried to like mess with it, it might throw my mechanics off a little bit. Um, to be honest, like I don't really look at it that much. I would say more of like how's the pitch moving just overall, whether the spin's high or the spin's low. And I know it's like a big thing in baseball. Like you want your pitches to like have high spin. Back in the day when we were allowed to use sticky stuff or whatever, and they banned it, like pitcher spin rates dropped down. And I never really used that stuff ever, but um, I also I played around with it in the off season to see if it messed with like movement, and I didn't see a whole. There wasn't a difference for me whether I was experimenting with it or not, like trying to artificially increase the spin rate. So for me, I don't really look at it as a big part of like my development in my game.
For sure. Yeah, it's super fascinating because you're definitely not the first person that I've talked to within the organization that has said that, right?
Mhm.
Like I said earlier, like we talked to Brennan White and he kind of said a similar thing and honestly alluded to what you talked about earlier with a lot of like release point stuff and things about that and not as much spin. So
Mhm.
it's fascinating because like you said, that is something that so many people seem to hold on to and care a great deal amount. But it's the more and more like actual professional pitchers I talk to, the more
Yeah.
answers I get kind of along your answer there. And like transitioning then from that into just right now, I mean, obviously you said you're working on the sinker, and I, clearly that's an exciting thing to start the season off and kind of showcase a new pitch and see how it works for you. What else are you really looking at developmentally this upcoming season? Like, what other adjustments are you making in preparation for the season that you're kind of excited to showcase this summer?
Yeah. So I guess just overall, I would say my velocity is a little higher. I think last year during spring training or at the beginning of spring training, I was in the low 90s, and it wasn't really for me where I wanted to be at the time, and it kind of bled into the season a little bit. I got maybe a little bit in my head about it, like why am I throwing slow? And so this year I came in and I made a couple mechanical adjustments and um, started moving a little faster, and I'm sitting comfortably in 93, 94, 95 range, and I feel really good where I'm at going into the season. With a few more weeks left of spring training, I can see my numbers getting up a little bit higher if I stay on that track. So that's been the biggest thing. And then I've always had to work on my changeup, I would say, and that's been a big part of my development this spring as well. So I'm really focused hard on that, trying to create that same like seam shift with the changeup. It's hard for me to pronate my hand. I'm like I said, like when I release the ball, I'm kind of on the side of it this way. So getting that seam shifted effect on the ball of my changeup to get a little more vertical break off of it has helped a whole lot too.
For sure. Well, I one question I also ask everybody, no matter what position you play. One question I love to ask is just, what is your, I guess favorite is the right word, even though that kind of sounds like weird to say. But what is the number or stat or analytic or whatever that you look at the most? What is the one thing that if that number is looking good, you're going to be pleased with how your game went, how your season's going,
Mhm.
etc.
Yeah, I think it's a tie between strike percentage and velocity. Usually when I'm throwing hard, I feel pretty good.
Sure.
Like that goes for all my pitches. So if my fastball's hard, if my slider's hard, I guess changeup would be different. Like I want that to be slow, but if I'm throwing hard, my mechanics are on. Even if my changeup is a little hard, usually it has a lot more movement. So I would definitely say velocity for sure, and then I guess it also doesn't matter if I'm not throwing my pitches in the zone. So it doesn't matter
Sure.
if I'm throwing 100 if I can't find the strike zone. Those are very, very. It's a very tight race there.
Sure, very fair. Yeah, well, I think that the velocity is always great, obviously, and
Hmm.
I also think that the strike percentage thing, that's something that not that this organization or fan base or whatever was just like ignorant to a year ago, but
Hmm.
something that has really taken the forefront in a lot of people's minds, myself included, when like talking about the Tigers organization top to bottom, just because of how important management and upper management have kind of just been like preaching it constantly. So I know we kind of talked about it a little bit earlier, but just talk about that again, and if the organization is as loud about it publicly as they are internally, I guess, and then
Hmm.
how important just again that is kind of for you, those low walk numbers. Scott Harris's favorite thing is dominate the strike zone. Like
Yeah.
how much is that kind of in the back of your mind all the time?
Uh, like I don't stress myself out about it. Like if I throw a ball, I'm not gonna like fall
Right.
at it and be like, Scott Harris is gonna fire me.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
not gonna
Very
be like
fair.
that. But I'm also like very aggressive when I'm on the mound, and it's like a good kind of aggressive. Like I'm gonna attack the hitter. I'm not. I don't care. Like I want to throw hard and I want to throw in the zone. I'm not necessarily like trying to pinpoint exactly like bottom third corner every single time.
Sure.
I want to fill up the zone. I know where my pitches play at, and I know where they're good. I'm trying to throw to a specific spot, I guess, but I'm not being so fine where I'm gonna be like pushing the ball or changing my mechanics to like maybe get it in the zone. Like I'm trying to attack. I'm trying to throw it through the catcher. I'm trying to be aggressive. And when I'm aggressive and I'm not thinking about anything other than striking the hitter out, that's when I throw a lot of strikes. It's when I'm thinking about throwing the strike that I don't throw the strike, because then
Right.
I start to think about, well, I don't want to throw a ball, but then I'm thinking about throwing a ball also. So I'm kind of all over the place. I want to be in attack mode, and I want to fill up the zone. I want to attack the hitter, and that for me leads to better results than anything else.
Sure. Yeah. The old adage, don't think, throw. Right. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's very, very fair. One of the other things we're starting to see a lot in the organization is versatility, and it's super easy to see it on the offensive side of things, right? Like you see so many players, getting asked to play multiple positions and whatnot, but I think it's something that is becoming very prevalent on the pitching side of things too. Like there are a lot of players now who whether it's management or the front office or whatever, have really started to, like you can be either a long inning reliever or a starter if we need you, and we can kind of that versatility to have both of those options available for a lot of these pitchers. Like Garrett Hill's somebody who we're seeing that a lot with, and Alex Faedo, etc. So,
Hmm.
is that a conversation? I don't want to say like is that a conversation you've had necessarily, but is that something that is maybe talked about as well, where not that you're gonna overnight just turn into like a one inning back end reliever or anything, but is that versatility kind of a conversation that's had throughout the development plan, I guess?
Um, not really. I would say I think people um they don't really care where you are. I guess like as long as you help the team win, even if you're in the bullpen or you're starting, if you're helping the team win, that's what matters. So for me, I don't care if I'm in the bullpen or if I'm starting. Like if AJ or Scott thinks that I'm gonna give the team the best chance to win if I'm starting, then I want to start. And if he thinks I'm better as a closer, then I'm gonna close or long relief or whatever. Like it doesn't matter to me. I'm here to help the team win, and if whatever role I end up in, then if that brings a ring eventually, then that's what I want to do.
All right, I love it. I think just like a total pivot here. I do want to talk about. I have a lot of family down in Georgia, and I want to talk
All right.
about you growing up down in Georgia
Okay.
and playing baseball in Georgia, and just like the
Yeah.
landscape of baseball. Like I don't think people like up north really realize like. I mean, baseball down there is like dang near religion, and
Mm-hmm.
kind of hockey up here, baseball down there kind
Sure.
of thing, I feel like. So I did want to ask you about that, and just obviously Mercer as well, just kind of the baseball landscape down there growing up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was really competitive. Trying to get on the best team. Like you had East Cobb and Lake Point and all these big places to go play, and like there was a lot of media coverage there and whatever, a lot of attention when you went and played in those places. So yeah, it is a crazy culture down there in Georgia, and I didn't really growing up there. I didn't take it like super serious. Like I knew I kind of wanted to go to college with baseball, but I wasn't worried too much about like my prospect rankings
Sure.
or like going to prospect camps or perfect game things. Like I just wanted to play ball and have fun and play with my buddies. And it was more of like I would say the parents kind of did that stuff versus the kids. Like the kids just want to play and compete with each other, and everybody else makes it bigger than it actually is. So, um, yeah, I mean, going to college also in Georgia was cool. Being in home, and like that's Mercer's a competitive baseball school too, and I kind of wanted to go there always, and it was good for me to get exposure being down in Georgia, also being able to play against that competition and have success. I think I got a lot more exposure than I would have like anywhere else, especially, up north or somewhere where baseball isn't such a big thing. So, yeah.
For sure. Were you at Mercer when the Duke game happened, or was that just before you?
No, that was way before. No,
Oh, okay.
it was like 2013. I think my freshman year was 17, so
Oh, okay.
it
So
was it was
well
a
off there. I was
while,
just curious if that was
yeah.
I mean, I'm
No,
sure you guys
but
had some big
we
wins while you were
still
there
talk
too,
about it
obviously.
10 years later. It's kind of need to close the yearbook.
I have
It
no doubt. I have no doubt. Well,
was it
the
was
only
cool,
other
but
question I have for you, and then I'll let you get on your way, is something that I also ask every single prospect that comes on is with. So you obviously played a lot in Erie. I want to know
mhm,
favorite, whether it's like sports bar or restaurant or whatever, just like favorite
yeah.
place to go in Erie.
Oh, mm, well, I'm not like a huge person to go out, so I don't really drink, and but I like hang out with the guys and whatever. But
Sure, yeah.
there's a there's actually a museum in Erie. Um, God, what was it? It was a Erie Maritime Museum. Like they had um, a lot of history about the Great Lakes there and like the Civil War and stuff. And I'm kind of a history nerd, and that was kind of cool to see that part of the country and to see like how the Civil War and the Revolutionary War played out in up there in the Great Lakes,
Sure.
and how like the Navy operated back then in those lakes. So that was really interesting to me. I was honestly only in Erie, I think like 4 weeks
Yeah,
total
fair.
because we were traveling still a lot. So like that was a cool spot. And then actually right next door, there's like an outdoor bar that I hung out. They had live music and stuff, but that was a cool part of Erie. There's like two big hotels there, and then the museum and the outdoor bar. They had like live music and stuff, and it would get pretty packed. But that was a cool spot for sure.
I love it. I love it. Well, I appreciate you stopping by for real. I will we'll yeah, we'll throw this up tomorrow. It'll be cool. Well, tomorrow. I'm saying this in the recording. Obviously, the people will
Really?
hear it
Yeah.
on Wednesday. Appreciate you. Good luck this season. And yeah, we'll definitely be in touch.
All right. Thanks, Scott.